It's time for the Friday Night Roundtable featuring a newsmaker interview tonight with Dean Martin. Mr. Martin is treasurer for the state of Arizona. Joining me on the Friday Roundtable, Linda Valdez of the Arizona Republic, Jim Ninsel of the Tucson Weekly, and Ann Brown is with us from the Arizona Daily Star. Mr. Martin, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the governor did take some budget action, but how has it changed the state's financial picture?
Well, it basically kicked the can down the road. She signed some stuff so we can get some federal funds in that avert the crisis we were facing in October. DPS got funded, so they weren't going to run out of money today. But it didn't solve the budget. Basically, she vetoed the repeal, so we'll have a $250 million property tax increase, but we also lost some additional revenue that was in the same bill. So you combine that with all the line item vetoes that increase spending, basically, we're actually a $464 million more in the hole than we were last week. So in the net thing of things, we're actually worse off than we were the week before, but it's not as immediate of a crisis. So
we're still broke?
We're still broke. The state's over $100 million in the red today.
I don't understand how the state is actually functioning. We've got this sort of half budget going on. So how are we functioning every day?
Basically, the general fund has spent not only all of its money, but all of the rest of the operating fund of the state. That's the total amount of 1,300 other funds that it has access to. And so the general fund's over $1 billion in the red, even though the operating balance is only $100 million in the red. And basically the way we're keeping the lights on is instead of sending IOUs to vendors, we're basically selling those IOUs as a bond or a commercial paper type of instrument to some other funds that we manage at the Treasurer's office. So we're basically, it's kind of like a credit card. We've got a credit card with a $500 million limit, and that's how the state's operating.
But how do we know how much to spend? I mean,
well, that's the problem, is we don't have a balanced budget.
So we just go out and spend. If I'm agency X and I need to order paper clips, I just call up Office Max and order paper clips.
Well, you've got two things that happen right now. You've got the authority to spend, which is $1 billion more than the revenues coming in. That we expect to come in. So every day that we don't solve this budget problem, agencies are spending at a clip that cannot be met, which means every day you don't get this solved, that's another cut you're going to have to do later in the year. So this is one of those situations where the longer you wait, the larger the cuts are going to end up being. Because once that money's out the door, it doesn't come back.
One of the things Governor Brewer did sign was an agreement to sell off the Capitol building and other state properties and use that money to pay operating costs and have to pay it back in years to come. As someone who's in charge of investing state dollars as well as a former lawmaker, what did you think of that proposal?
It's a desperate measure. Unfortunately, the state is out of money and needed to raise money however it could. So I find it ironic that we're basically selling off the buildings and renting them back. It's kind of the Rent-A-Center way of running government. But the state's broke. I mean, literally, it has no sources of money. And so this is the one way they could come up with cash to get us through 2010, through the first half of 2010, the second half of this fiscal year. So hopefully, they'll be able to sell that. What I'm worried about is in the entire United States, all activity for lease purchase debt was about the same amount that the state of Arizona is just about to go out on the market with. So we're going to have 50% of the market, assuming we can sell it all. And this is a very soft credit market, a very tight credit market right now. So, it's going to cost us a lot more to go this way.
Has the state ever done this for operating funds before?
The state has done this to build buildings. It's never done it, as far as I know, for operating before, and never at this magnitude. I mean, we're talking, $735 million. That adds up.
Arizona gets about 49% of the money for the budget from sales tax and usage taxes. Mm-hmm. That's a very volatile source of revenue. I'm wondering if you have any ideas for other sources of revenue that might be more stable in the future.
Actually, we have the three main sources we have are corporate income, individual income, and sales tax collections. Sales tax is actually the most stable of those three. Everybody talks about it being volatile, but really it's actually the more stable one. We usually see single-digit swings in sales tax collections, where we see double-digit and high double-digit in the case of corporate income during good times and bad. What's more important, any revenue stream you come up with, whether it's property tax, sales tax, income tax, you're always always going to be subject to the economy. Because where do you get your money? You get it from people and things. It's less important to try to find a stable revenue stream as it is to recognize every revenue stream has volatility. Every revenue stream is going to go up and down, and plan for that. If you've got a revenue stream that's going to go up 10% and go down 10%, you should be saving some of the, when you're up 10%, so that you can cover it on the downside. That's the thing the state of Arizona really didn't do sufficiently during the last boom time.
Well, now property taxes are pretty stable, but that's a very small part of the mix now.
Actually, until recently, there was no state property tax.
Well, they were in abeyance for 3 years.
Yeah, for 3 years. And so prior to that, it was $250 million. Now we're back to that $250 million property tax. And generally, property tax is the most stable revenue stream. The difference here is the state has income and sales. A lot of local governments don't. They only have the property taxes, their only place to get tax collections. And so my theory has been always that some of those local governments need those property taxes. They have no other place to go. Mm-hmm. The state shouldn't horn in on that, because we're already the 4th highest commercial property tax in the nation. There's a better way. We should be smart enough to figure out how to save enough to get through the volatility of the sales tax, and leave those local governments that provide vital, public safety and other services, that, and of course, education as well, those scarce property tax dollars.
Are the rating services noting what's going on here in Arizona?
They are. S&P has not downgraded our rating, but they put us on what they call negative watch a couple weeks ago. And in fact, today we got notice that Moody's is putting the state of Arizona on negative watch. And that's a financial term for saying this is an entity, whether it's a business or a corporation or a government, that is unlikely to be able to maintain its current business model, and that is likely to have a downgrade going forward. And so they're watching like a hawk this whole budgeting process. And if we had balanced the budget last week, I don't think Moody's would have put us on negative watch, but that breakdown caused this, I think.
You're the state's banker, and so I'm wondering how much actual policy making and affecting policy that you can do as an elected official. Is that a frustrating position?
As state treasurer, right. I run the bank, and I'm kind of the Paul Revere, for lack of a better term. I don't control anything. I don't control the checkbook. That's the governor and the legislature's job. I'm like the bank, and your bank can't tell you to stop writing checks until you actually run out of money. But they can warn you in advance, and that's basically what I've been doing for the last 3 years. Because back when we had $2.5 billion in the bank, we were warning this day was coming, and it's been unfortunate that the lessons haven't been heeded, the warnings haven't been heeded.
So should this be an elected position if it can't affect policy?
Absolutely, because it's kind of like the dealer at the poker game. You don't want the dealer to be appointed by one of the players. That's a very dangerous type of thing going on. We control the chips, and we make sure that everybody is playing the game honestly and correctly.